Today we are introducing Marqo's brand new state-of-the-art embedding models for e-commerce, Marqo Ecommerce L and Marqo Ecommerce B. These models are here to redefine how product search and recommendations work in e-commerce. Let's dive straight into it. So firstly, what are embedding models and why did Marqo create e-commerce specific embedding models? So embedding models are a machine learning model that takes text, images, other types of data and represents it in a numerical format. And this is what is known as an embedding. Now, if you think about having text or images represented in a numerical way, we can then look at similarities between different texts and different images because they will be represented in the vector space. So the word cat and the word dog we would expect to be close together in a vector space. So that's what an embedding model is, but why did Marqo create one specifically for e-commerce? How do they tie in with e-commerce platforms? So like I mentioned, if you have a cat and a dog similar together in the vector space, then you would imagine that if you search for something like a green shirt textually and an image of a green shirt, those two would be close together in the vector space. And so when you search for products on an e-commerce website, those representations would be very similar. And so we can use similarity methods to retrieve the exact result. The great thing about these embeddings is that it makes it so much easier to find similarities and differences between items, and this is really helpful in search and recommendations. So why did Marqo create e-commerce specific embedding models? Why didn't we just use the standard models that we have in industry today? The truth is that embedding models like CLIP and SIGLIP were trained on a vast amount of data, very generic data, and not specifically for e-commerce. And so this means that when you use those embedding models for search and recommendations, they may not perform as well as expected on search applications. And so that's why Marqo's e-commerce embedding models come in. They are tailored specifically for e-commerce. And this means that e-commerce platforms can implement these embedding models and overall increase things like revenue, increase customer satisfaction, because customers are going to your website and finding exactly what they are looking for. The models that Marqo released, Marqo Ecommerce L and Marqo Ecommerce B, were actually trained on 50 million different items across a variety of different categories. The big question I'm sure everybody's asking is, well, how well did these models actually do compared to existing open source models and private models? Marqo's benchmarking was separated into two distinct regimes. There was Marqo Ecommerce Hard and Marqo Ecommerce Easy, and the reason for the Easy dataset was to accommodate for some of the private models. Here is a list of all of the embedding models that were benchmarked for the Easy dataset. Now this dataset is approximately 10 to 30 times smaller, so 200,000 products versus 4 million products in the hard dataset. And the reason for this was that it was designed to accommodate rate-limited models, specifically Cohere Embeddings version 3 and GCP Vertex. Now here is a list of all of the embedding models that were benchmarked in the hard dataset, and this is what represents the really hard challenge because it contains 4 million e-commerce product listings, and so this is more representative of a real-world e-commerce search scenario. In both of these scenarios, the models were benchmarked against 3 different tasks. We had Google Shopping text to image, Google Shopping category to image, and Amazon products text to image. Now let's take a look at the results. Now Marqo released this blog post that contains all of the benchmark results. We're just going to look at the overall performance of the different models per easy and hard dataset. But if you're interested, then check out this blog that contains all of the benchmark information and a list of everything that has been released as part of this launch. So we're going to take a look at this main image here. Now, this is the average performance of all benchmark models for both the Marqo Ecommerce Easy, which we can see on the left-hand side, and the Marqo Ecommerce Hard, which we can see on the right-hand side. So as it says in the graph, the left-hand side, so the Easy dataset, was a 200,000 evaluation, and the one on the right, so the hard dataset, was a 4 million evaluation. And we can see Marqo Ecommerce B and Marqo Ecommerce L denoted by the green bar charts in this graph. And we can see that there's an average improvement of 21% for the easy evaluation, and this is an average improvement from the base model, which is VIT B16 SIGLIP, and for the hard dataset we see a 37% average improvement, which is quite literally phenomenal for these models. Now, if you're interested, like I said, then please check out this blog. It's incredibly detailed and goes into all of the benchmarking processes, and you can even replicate the benchmarking yourself. So head over to this blog for more information. And if you're still interested, if you have questions, then make sure to sign up to Marqo's community on Slack. I'll put the link in the description. So why do these models matter for e-commerce? Well, the first is more accurate and faster search results. The second is better precision and recall. And finally, better recommendations as well. If you have an e-commerce platform and you're using it to recommend products to users, these models allow you to enhance that even further and overall drive increased revenue to your business. Now, the fantastic part about these models is that they are open source, anyone can use them, they are on Hugging Face. I will put a link to the collection in the description and the pinned comment. As part of that collection, we have also released both models, 4 different evaluation data sets, Hugging Face spaces, which are like demos, so allowing you to play around with the models themselves, and also full benchmarks as well in that collection. So there's a lot of open source material released as part of this launch, so make sure to head over to the Hugging Face and GitHub to access all of those resources. What's fantastic, like I said, is that they are on Hugging Face, so they can be loaded with Hugging Face Transformers library in Python, but also the OpenClip library as well in Python. Another fantastic thing is that these models can be loaded into Marqo Cloud, and I'm going to be releasing a video on a full search application tutorial using Marqo Cloud and these embedding models, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of those videos, and thank you so much for watching. We'll see you all in the next one.